Hi, I'm Michael Godfrey, and you're listening to a recent talk I gave which explores procrastination in a spiritual context. I pray that you receive a blessing from the message.
I'm going to start with a story. I stare down at my book and let out a long sigh. I've been assigned another university assignment. This one's 2,000 words. Dutifully, I record the relevant information displayed on the board as my lecturer babbles about how a paper is worth 40% of our grade, and he tells us to make a start immediately. It's a long-term assignment though. We have a whole 4 weeks to finish it, so I don't have to worry about it right away, do I? Before long, everyone is exiting the lecture theatre. The countdown begins. Let's skip ahead 3 weeks. T-minus 5 days. 5 days before the assignment is due. I really should have started by now, but I haven't known where to start. That's alright though, I still have 5 days. I take a trip to the library to find an assignment topic. After checking my emails and having a chat to the librarian about her holiday last week, I finally sit down with a blank sheet of paper and a freshly sharpened pencil. Wait, is that a tickle in the back of my throat I feel? I get up and grab a drink of water. Strolling back past countless rows of books, I can't imagine how I'm supposed to pick just one tiny topic to write about. Exhausted from the unfairness of it all, I decide to call it a day. 4 days to go. I sit down at my desk with the same blank sheet of paper and the same pencil. Oh, and the same tickle in the back of my throat as well. So I get up and I grab a drink of water. Before long, my phone lets out a distracting noise. It's a text message from a friend doing the same assignment. She hasn't started yet either. We have 4 days to go. So I spend 3 hours talking to her about how much of a waste of time the whole assignment is. 3 hours. Alright, time to start writing. I say as some dust floats down from the desk, or onto my desk. Looking up, I notice how dirty my ceiling fan is. How can I work knowing microscopic pieces of dust, possibly filled with carcinogens, are being blown up by my nostrils? Where did Mum and Dad keep the stepladder? 3 days to go before it's due. I haven't even started yet, but it's Sabbath today. I think I've deserved a break after all the hard work I've done. Cleaning the house, that is. I write down my plans to study in the evening, but it doesn't happen. 2 days to go, and I've just come home from a long shift at work. I'm way too tired to use my brain cells now. I settle down and have a much-deserved night of reading and watching television. 1 day to go, and it's 6:30 p.m. I've just come home from playing basketball with some friends. Nobody works well on an empty stomach though, so I take my time at dinner. Finally, I sit down with a blank sheet of paper and a not so freshly sharpened pencil. I start writing. A letter to a friend I met at Big Camp last year. That's right, relationships are important too. Looking at my clock, I realize I only have 12 hours to finish my paper. I begin to panic, so I read a few chapters of my favorite book to calm down. My throat's dry again, so I get another drink of water. Reread the assignment and write my name on a piece of paper. I made a start. Then I notice my DVDs are all sitting on the floor disorganized. So I go over and arrange them in alphabetical order. Back in my room, I lie down on the floor and moan about the injustice of it all, but knowing the end is near, I jump up and I write. And I write and I write and I write. And hours later, I collapse into my bed. And my alarm goes off and it's morning already. Due date. When I get to class, I grumble about how I have to stay up all night, slaving away just to finish the paper off. Then the lecturer assigns us another paper. Believe me, I've learned my lesson. I write down the new due date and carefully file the assignment away in my notebook. I will get started right away. But first of all, I could really use a drink of water. Okay, don't worry, I'm not that bad when it comes to procrastination. But I do admit, I'm not immune to putting things off either. In fact, some might say I have a bit of a problem with it. Today though, I want to focus on a different type of procrastination, and that is spiritual procrastination. But let's begin by... Oh, that's not the right slide. The right slide is slide number 2. I think we're done to 30. No, not that one. Back. Can I go back? Yes, that one. Yes. No? Yes, that one. We want to start by looking at what procrastination is, what the big word actually means. So I've got a definition here from Merriam-Webster Dictionary, and it says, procrastination is the act of putting off or delaying something intentionally or habitually. So, it's putting something off. It's like what I was doing with my assignment. It's making up excuses and saying, you know, I don't have to do it right now. I can take my time, I can do it later. There's always going to be more time. Or maybe saying, I don't have enough time, and it's not that important, so I'll just go and do it later. Procrastination is putting things off. So with that in mind, let's have a look at the top 5 things that people procrastinate. If we can go forwards. We can't go forwards. There it is. Number 5 is organizing workspaces. So people, this is the 5th top thing that people procrastinate. People have a messy, disorganized workspace, and they say, you know, I really should clean it up. I really should get that organized, but they don't. They say, I'll do it later. I'll put it off. Number 4 is assignments, like in the story, at school, at university, or even assignments at work. People say, oh, you know, I don't feel like doing it, I'll do it later. Number 3 is correspondence, personal or work correspondence. People say, you know, I really should email that person back, I really should give them a call, but it doesn't happen, or at least not until later. Number 2 is cleaning tasks. People think, you know, I really should clean up that basement where, or the garage where all of my belongings are all in a mess and they're all cluttered, but I just don't feel like it's all too late. And then the number 1 thing people procrastinate is exercise. Exercise. And then I've got this picture here. Yep, there it is. This person says, I'm not disorganized. I know exactly where everything is. The new stuff is on the top, and the old stuff is on the bottom. But why do people procrastinate? Why? Why do they delay tasks which are so obviously important and beneficial to them? Here are a few of my thoughts. See, procrastination is a matter of priorities. So, in my story, I continually was finding menial tasks. It's still ringing. Is that because of this? This microphone? No. In my story, I kept finding tasks, menial tasks that I could use to occupy my time, so I wouldn't have to do the big task, the task I didn't want to do, which was completing the paper, the assignment. So really what I was doing was I was prioritizing other things above what I was supposed to do. And that's why I'm saying procrastination is a matter of priorities. The problem is that many of the tasks that we don't want to do have deadlines. And that means we have to do them eventually. And so, it's always better to get things done sooner rather than later, because if you leave things for too long, if you procrastinate them, it causes 2 things to happen. It causes us to sacrifice other activities in order to make time. And so, in the example of the story, that would be I had to sacrifice my sleep that night, I had to stay up all night, I had to make time. And then the second thing is putting in less than 100%. So you rush through something, you get it done quickly. You don't give it your all, you don't give it your best. And when that happens, you risk getting a fail rate, you risk having a negative consequence, negative long-term implications. So both of these things are unhealthy and unpleasant. Procrastination may hold negative long-term implications. So if we know that procrastination is unhealthy and unpleasant, how do people rationalize it? Why do people do it? How do they justify it and say, yeah, it's okay? How do they defend their behavior? Here are the top 3 excuses people use when someone says, you're procrastinating, why are you doing that? These are the top 3. The first one is, the people say, the person might say, I don't know where to start. I just don't know, I'm overwhelmed with everything. I have no idea how to start or where to start. And that's what they're using to say, I'm going to put it off until later. The second one is, I don't need to start right now. I've got all the time in the world, I don't need to start right now. And then the third one is, I don't have enough time. I'm busy. I've got too much on my plate at the moment, I just don't have enough time to do this. And so those are the top 3 things. Now let's have a look at what procrastination looks like in a spiritual context. This is what I would say. I would say the key to maintaining and nurturing a relationship is quality time. Would you agree with that? Do you think quality time is the key to nurturing and maintaining a relationship? I think setting aside time to regularly read the Bible, pray, and talk to God is essential for improving our relationship with Him. But unfortunately, we may sometimes be tempted to procrastinate our spiritual walk, or to put it off. Of course, we understand how important praying and reading scripture are to a healthier relationship with God. And of course, we have good intentions. But intentions alone are not simply enough. We need to turn the aims into actions. If procrastination is a matter of priorities, and we are procrastinating our spiritual growth, we need to stop and ask ourselves, is God our top priority? And now let's have a look at the excuses again. But let's have a look at them in a spiritual context. So let's have a look at the first one. The first one is, I don't know where to start. And people might say, I don't know where to start, I don't know how to pray, I don't know how to read the Bible or where to start reading, I don't know where to start. And they could use that as an excuse and say, I'm just not going to start, I'm just going to put it off until later. The second one, I don't need to start right now. I've got all the answers done for God, I don't need to do it right now. And the third one, I don't have enough time. Another question, for God? You don't have enough time for God? So those are the three excuses. Now, let's have a look at what the Bible has to say about this topic. So I'd like you to turn with me in your Bibles to Proverbs chapter 24. Proverbs 24, we're starting in verse 30. And it says, I went by the field of the lazy man, and by the vineyard of the man devoid of understanding. And there it was, all overgrown with thorns. Its surface was covered with nettles, its stone wall was broken down. When I saw it, I considered it well. I looked at it and received instruction. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. So shall your poverty come like a prowler, and your need like an armed man. What is Solomon saying in this proverb? If we break it down, he's describing a man who owns a vineyard. What types of traits does the man exhibit, the man that owns the vineyard? It says he's a lazy man. It says he's a man that's devoid of understanding. He said, pictured as someone who has a task, and the task is to maintain the vineyard and keep it in good working condition. But unfortunately, he's using the second excuse. Do you remember what the second excuse is? What's the second procrastination excuse? That's right. I don't need to start right now. And we see the results of his philosophy. The vineyard's become overgrown with thorns, and the stone wall's been broken down. And how different might the vineyard have looked, or might it look, if he had set aside the time to deal with the problems before they could get out of hand? If he didn't say, I don't need to start right now, instead if he said, I should do it right away, I should take care of the vineyard. He didn't let it get out of hand, he didn't put it off, he didn't wait until later. How different might the vineyard have looked then? Our relationship with God can be likened to the man's vineyard. If we fail to spend time, quality time with God, then the relationship will gradually deteriorate. Thankfully, similarly to the vineyard, it can be repaired, but it can't be done in one day. It takes time to repair a broken relationship. And so, I think prevention is better than a cure. I think that if we, instead of putting it off and saying, I have all the time for it, I'll do it later, I don't need to start right now. If we get into that routine, if we are disciplined and we say, I'm going to, and we don't let it happen, we don't let it escalate to that, it's going to be, we don't have to spend all that time repairing a broken relationship because our relationship isn't going to be broken in the first place. So let's look at Proverbs chapter 6 now. Proverbs chapter 6, which is 18 chapters backwards. And I'm going to read it from the New Living Translation because I like how they put this one. Proverbs chapter 6. It says, don't put it off. Do it now. Don't rest until you do. Save yourself like a gazelle escaping from a hunter, like a bird fleeing from a net. Take a lesson from the ants, you lazy bones. Learn from their ways and become wise. Though they have no prince or governor or ruler to make them work, they labor hard all summer, gathering food for the winter. But you lazy bones, how long will you sleep? When will you wake up? A little extra sleep, a little more slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. Then poverty will pounce on you like a bandit. Scarcity will attack you like an armed robber. I think this passage is pretty self-explanatory. God, through Solomon, is warning us about the dangers of putting off important tasks. He actually says, don't put it off. Don't put the tasks off, do them right now. And the utmost of these tasks, I think, are the tasks related to our spiritual lives. Solomon addresses the first procrastination excuse. What's the first excuse? Yeah, that's right. I don't know where to start. And he says, well, look at the ants. He says, learn from their ways. No one teaches the ants to gather food. They don't have a prince or a governor or someone that's ruling over them, telling them what to do. But they know the work's important. And so they do it without haste, and they do it to the best of their ability. They find out how to do it. They're eager. They're hungry for it, so they go searching. They find out what needs to be done, and they do it to the best of their ability, even if it's not perfect, per se. And the third couple of passages I want to look at, where we're looking at the third procrastination excuse, which is, what's the third excuse? I don't have enough time. And we're going to go to 2 Corinthians first, 2 Corinthians chapter 5. Now, for this verse, I was reading a little bit about this topic, and I came across a pastor named Pastor Steve Cable. And what he does is, these verses talk about the idea of life on this earth, and what we do with our life on this earth. And what he does is he replaces life on this earth in the passage with time on this earth, because we're talking about time. And so I'll show you, it's pretty powerful, I'll show you what it says with the abridged version. It says, 2 Corinthians 5:14 says, for the love of Christ controls us, having concluded this, that one died for all, therefore all died. And he died for all, so that they who have time on this earth might no longer use their time for themselves, but for him who died and rose again in their behalf. So, in other words, I think the verse is saying, no one is more worthy of our time than God is. His sacrificial love for us demands that we give him time and that we make him our top priority. I think he understands that we do have a full-on day. We have a day where it's just completely packed and we just don't even have time to sit down. But I think most of the time, I think people could find 10 minutes to sit down and read the newspaper or have lunch. I think they could find 15 minutes to have a snack or have a break. And the verse is saying, who is more worthy of that time? Who deserves that time more than God does? Because of the sacrifice that he has given us, because of what he has done for us. It says, that excuse, I don't have enough time, we could twist that around and say, do you really not have enough time for God? And then the second passage here is in 1 Corinthians 10:31. And I've got it up on the screen again. I've substituted it again. It says, so whether you eat or drink or however you spend your time, use all of your time for the glory of God. And that one's self-explanatory again. God expects us to give him our time. And not a few minutes at the end of the day when we're already half asleep, but quality time throughout the day where we can truly dwell in his presence and where we can truly, improve our relationship with him. The final passage I have is in John chapter 15. We're starting in verse 1. John 15, verse 1. And it says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit he takes away, and every branch that bears fruit he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. From this passage, we're made aware of just how important spending quality time with God really is. Jesus likens us to branches. So he says, we're the branches, and every branch that bears fruit, he prunes that it may bear more fruit. But unless we consistently abide with Jesus, unless we consistently bear fruit, unless we consistently abide with him, we won't bear any spiritual fruit. And the powerful metaphor that is shown here really displays how damaging procrastination can be to our relationship with God. How damaging putting off our devotional life, putting off spending time with God, talking to Him, praying with Him, reading the Word, can be to the whole relationship. Did I just go backwards a little bit? Yeah, I did. Sorry. Remember, procrastination is habitual. That's what the definition says. So it happens more than once. It happens over and over again. If we miss one devotion, I don't think our connection to our Creator will be affected very much. But if this becomes a habit, if it becomes something that happens often, that day upon day we say, we use one of those three excuses, and we become complacent and we become, I suppose, a little bit less motivated than we were before to spend time with God, then our relationship is sure to falter just as the branch withers when it's disconnected from the source. And then I've got one more quotation here. This is from the book Steps to Christ. And this is what Ellen White has to say about procrastination. And she's talking about procrastinating our repentance of sins. So we're looking at Steps to Christ here, chapter 3, which is called repentance. And it says, "Beware of procrastination. Do not put off the work of forsaking your sins and seeking purity of heart through Jesus. Here is where thousands upon thousands of heirs of their eternal loss. I will not here dwell upon the shortness and uncertainty of life. But there is a terrible danger, a danger not sufficiently understood, in delaying to yield to the pleading voice of God's Holy Spirit, in choosing to live in sin, for such this delay really is. Sin, however small it may be esteemed, can be indulged in only at the peril of infinite loss. What we do not overcome will overcome us and work out our destruction." Okay, so we've looked at what procrastination is. We've looked at why people do it. We've looked at the excuses they use, and we've looked at the negative implications. More specifically, we've explored what spiritual procrastination is, or what procrastination looks like in a spiritual context. And we've examined what the Bible has to say. Finally, I want to look at some things that we can do to overcome or to avoid spiritual procrastination in our own lives. And the first one here is we can make a routine and we can stick to it. I think statistically, when you make a routine, when you get into the habit of doing something day upon day, it becomes, it becomes well-grounded. It's something that you don't tend to put off. If something is spontaneous, if you say, I'm going to do this task, but I don't mind when I do it. I'm going to do it maybe at 8 o'clock one day and at 5 o'clock another day. It makes it a lot harder to stick to it. But if you get into the routine of saying every morning at 6:30 in the morning I'm going to wake up and I'm going to have meditation, or at my lunch break I'm going to pray to God, or in the evening before I go to bed I'm going to have my devotion. If you make that your routine day upon day, I think it's going to be easier for you to not pull that off. It's going to be easier for you to stick to that commitment that you've made. The second one, modify your environment and ask yourself, is it inclusive to spiritual growth? So, the example I was thinking was, are you trying to have a devotion at 9 o'clock or 8:30 when everyone's walking around the house and there are cars or outside and they're beeping their horns and everyone's going crazy? It's just hard. If you modify your environment a little bit, and if you say, I'm going to wake up a little bit earlier and close the bedroom door and just have peace and quiet, then I think it's easier for you to not only avoid the procrastination, but also have a more fulfilling devotion. And then number 3 is, we've already talked about this one, is to make God our top priority. So I'm not going to go into that too much. Number 4 is to become immersed in spiritual things. And what I mean by this one is during everyday activities. So a lot of people say, I don't have enough time to spend time with God, I'll do it later, I'll do it at night or something. But then what they fail to realize is they're driving to work for 15 minutes, there and back every day. They've got 15 minutes, 20 minutes of a lunch where they have a break. They could easily put on a podcast or listen to spiritual music on their way to work. They could easily talk to God during their lunch break. They could talk to God throughout the day. There's lots of things I think that we can do, because I'm guilty of this as well, procrastinating, my spiritual growth at times. But I think there's lots of things we can do to become immersed in spiritual things throughout the day. And one example that I have, something that I've been doing recently, is I just have a little I have post-it notes, and I've been writing verses on post-it notes and sticking them around the house. So that when I walk around and I see the verse sticking out, it just kind of reminds me, first of all, I get to read it, and it reminds me of God. And I get to think about what the verse means. And it's just a nice way to break up the day, because days can be busy. It's just a nice way to break it up and to kind of give you a bit of, spiritual version, like the point's saying. And then the final one that I have is perseverance. And this is important for me. So if you have a bad day. So if you have a bad day and you say, I really wanted to spend time with God today, but I just didn't get around to it. You can't let that discourage you. You can't let that affect what your day is going to be like tomorrow. I think you're allowed to have a bad day. I think God understands. But I think what God expects, I think, is for you to wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to make it up, and I'm going to have a better day today, and I'm going to look at these other things and see what I can do. And then the final thing I think that we can do to overcome spiritual procrastination is just ask God to help us. It's just say, God, I care about you, and I care about the relationship between you and I don't want to put it off, and I don't want to kind of, leave it. I want it to be my top priority. I want it to be the highlight of my day. And if we ask God, I think He'll help us to not put it off, to want to do it, have that desire to spend time with Him. Because we know what happens when we have a relationship with someone and then we don't call them, we don't text them, we put off a correspondence with them. The relationship kind of withers and dies like the branch being disconnected from the source, and we don't want that to happen to our relationship with God. We should never let ourselves fall into the trap of saying we don't know where to start, of saying we have all the time in the world, or of saying we don't have any time at all. Instead, we should ensure that God is our top priority, and we should make time for Him, because no one is more worthy of our time than God is.
Well, thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the talk and have been inspired to reevaluate your spiritual life in light of procrastination, which is something I think a lot of us can struggle with. Also, if you're interested in having a more in-depth look at some of the themes and ideas presented here, I encourage you to check out a video over on the After Sermon podcast channel, in which I expand a lot on the information from this sermon, talk about what inspired me to create it, and also talk about some of the things that I had to take out due to time constraints. So, if you're interested in learning more about this topic, the link to that video is in the description. God bless everyone.